As the wedding band played and guests cheered, Fina stood silently at the back of the lavish hall, her eyes fixed on the diamond-encrusted necklace her grandmother had promised her, now hanging from her brother's bride. Her own bloodline had erased her from history, but tonight she wouldn't just watch. She had arrived not to cause a scene, but to reclaim everything they thought she'd forgotten. Fina had always been close to her grandmother. Since she was a little girl, she sat on her grandmother's lap, listened to stories, and learned about the family's land and treasures. Her grandmother always told her, "One day, all this will be yours. You are the one with the heart to protect it." So when her grandmother passed away, Fina expected to receive what was promised. She didn't want too much, just the things her grandmother had saved for her. But everything changed the day the family met with the lawyer. Fina sat quietly, waiting to hear her name in the will. But instead, every single thing, land, money, and even the special jewelry, was given to her brother, Gemma. Fina's heart dropped. She looked around, confused, hoping someone would speak up. But her parents didn't even blink. When she asked why, tears filling her eyes, her mother simply said, "You're just a girl. Gemma will take care of you." Her father added, "It's better this way. He's the man of the house now." Fina felt like the ground had been pulled from under her feet. All the love, all the promises, all the dreams, gone in a second. The worst part was not losing the inheritance, but realizing her family didn't see her as worthy. To them, she was just a girl, someone to be pushed aside. They didn't care how much she had been there for her grandmother, or how much those promises meant. Fina sat in silence, crushed, watching her brother smile and accept everything like it was always meant for him. In that moment, she knew something wasn't right. Something had been changed, and one day she would find out the truth. Fina packed her few clothes and left her family's house with nothing but pain in her heart. She didn't argue, didn't fight. She just walked away quietly. The home that once felt warm had now become cold and full of betrayal. No one stopped her, not her parents, not even Gemma, who had taken everything that was supposed to be hers. She felt invisible, like she didn't matter, so she decided she would never beg, never ask, and never go back. Fina moved to a small town far away. She found a tiny room to rent and got a job in a local tailoring shop. The pay was little and the hours were long, but she didn't complain. She knew how to sew well thanks to her grandmother, who taught her with love and patience. Every morning, Fina opened the shop early, swept the floors, and sat behind the sewing machine until night. She stitched gowns for brides, dresses for parties, and clothes for children, always with care, always with quiet strength. But the pain was always there, hiding behind her smile. Every time she sewed a wedding dress, she thought of how her own life was supposed to be different. She imagined herself wearing the necklace her grandmother once showed her. She pictured standing on her own land, building a small shop of her own, maybe even starting a family. But instead, she lived in the shadows, watching other people celebrate, while her own dreams were stolen. Fina never called her parent. She never wrote to Gemma. She didn't even tell anyone her real story. She worked, saved money, and kept her heart strong. But every night, when she laid her head on the thin pillow in her small room, she whispered her grandmother's words to herself. "You are the one with the heart to protect it." And deep down, she still believed that one day, somehow, she would get back what was hers, not just the land or the jewelry, but the dignity they tried to take from her. Fina may have lived in the shadows, but the fire inside her never died. 3 years had gone by since Fina walked away from her family and the life she once knew. She had kept to herself, focusing on her work, saving money, and slowly healing from the pain they caused. She never looked back. She never thought they would even remember her. But one hot afternoon, as she was closing her shop, a shiny gold envelope slipped through the door. Curious, she picked it up and opened it slowly. Inside was a wedding invitation. Elegant, expensive, the kind meant to impress people. Her brother Gemma was getting married. At first, Fina just stared at it. Then her eyes caught a handwritten note in her mother's familiar script. It said, "Don't embarrass us. Wear something simple." That one sentence felt like a slap. It wasn't love. It wasn't a warm message to reconnect. It was a warning, a reminder that she still didn't belong. They still saw her as a burden, not family, not even a guest, just a shadow. She almost tore the invitation in half, but something made her look again. This time, her eyes locked on the bride's name, Lami. Fina's hands started to shake. Her chest felt tight. Lami wasn't just any name. Lami had been her best friend. They grew up together, laughed, cried, and shared secrets. They were like sisters. But after Fina left home, Lami had disappeared from her life too. No calls, no letters, nothing. And now, she was marrying Gemma. Fina sat down, her thoughts racing. Was this a joke? Did Lami know what happened to her? Did she know what Gemma and his parents did? Questions filled her heart, but the pain came back even stronger. The wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a message. They had erased her completely, replaced her, and now wanted her to sit quietly in a corner while they smiled and posed for pictures. But Fina didn't cry. Not this time. She folded the invitation carefully and placed it on her table. She stared at it, not with sadness, but with a quiet strength growing inside her. If they thought she was still the same broken girl from 3 years ago, they were wrong. Something inside her had changed, and deep in her heart, she knew this wedding might just be the place where everything would finally turn. One quiet evening, Fina was cleaning her small apartment. Her sewing machine sat in the corner, silent for once. She had been feeling heavy in her heart since the wedding invitation arrived. To distract herself, she opened an old wooden trunk she hadn't touched in years. It was filled with memories, pieces of fabric, childhood pictures, and a few old books. But deep at the bottom, wrapped in a faded scarf, she found something she hadn't seen in a long time. Letters, handwritten letters from her grandmother. Her hands trembled as she picked them up. The paper smelled faintly of old perfume, the kind her grandmother always wore. Fina sat on the floor and started reading. Most of the letters were warm, full of love and wisdom. Her grandmother had always been the only one who truly saw her, who believed in her. But then she found one letter that was different. It was dated just 1 week before her grandmother died. As she opened it, her heart pounded. Inside, the letter was simple, but powerful. Her grandmother had listed out family land, jewelry, and a few special heirlooms. At the end of the letter, one sentence stood out. For Fina, she will guard our legacy with grace. Fina gasped. These were the same things that were supposed to be hers, the same things that ended up in her brother's name, the same necklace she saw on Lami's neck in the wedding invitation photo. Her grandmother had clearly chosen her to carry the legacy. She had trusted Fina, believed in her, and someone had taken that trust and thrown it away. Suddenly, everything made sense. The fake will, her parents' cold words, the quick way they pushed her aside. It wasn't a mistake, it was a plan. They changed the will. They lied to everyone. They betrayed her, not just as a daughter, but as the true heir to her grandmother's dream. Tears filled Fina's eyes, but they weren't just from sadness. They were from fire, anger, strength, and truth. She hadn't just lost money or property. She had been robbed of her birthright. But now, she had proof, real proof. And this time, she wasn't going to keep quiet. Her grandmother's voice was in those letters, and it was telling her one thing: take back what's yours. Fina decided to do something bold. She created a new identity, using a fake name and number. She messaged Lami, pretending to be a wedding designer offering free services to brides from wealthy families. Lami responded with excitement, and they agreed to meet at a small cafe. Fina wore a scarf over her hair and glasses to hide her face. Her heart was beating fast, but she stayed calm. When Lami arrived, she looked beautiful, but tired. Her smile was forced, and her eyes looked empty. As they sat down, Lami started talking about the wedding. She showed Fina pictures of her dress, the decorations, and the guest list. But soon, her voice changed. She stopped smiling and looked down at her cup of tea. Without knowing who she was talking to, Lami sighed and said, "To be honest, I don't even know if I'm happy. I accepted Gemma's proposal because I thought his family had money. I thought I'd live a comfortable life. But Gemma, he's not who I expected. He's cold. He barely talks to me. He gets angry easily. Sometimes, I feel like I made a huge mistake." Fina listened silently. Her chest felt tight. She wanted to scream, to tell Lami everything, to tell her she was the girl Gemma's family betrayed, that she was the friend Lami left behind. But she didn't say a word. She just nodded and smiled gently, acting like a stranger who cared. As Lami kept talking, Fina's heart broke more and more, not just for herself, but for Lami too. She remembered how close they used to be, how they would laugh and share secrets. Lami had once been kind and full of dreams, but now she was trapped in a life she didn't even want. all because of greed and lies. Fina walked away from the meeting with mixed feelings. She felt sad, but also stronger. Now she knew the truth. Gemma hadn't only stolen from her, he had tricked someone else too. And Lami, who had once been her best friend, was now a shadow of her old self. Fina didn't feel revengeful. She just felt ready. Ready to show the world the truth. Ready to rise. Fina didn't rush. She stayed calm and smart. She remembered her grandmother once talked about a kind lawyer, someone who could be trusted with anything. Fina found his old contact, and when she called, the lawyer still remembered her grandmother's voice and kindness. Fina told him everything and showed him the old letters, especially the one with her grandmother's handwriting that clearly said, "For Fina, she will guard our legacy with grace." The lawyer looked shocked but serious. He took the case quietly, and after checking the records and comparing the handwriting, it was clear. The will had been changed after her grandmother's death. It was illegal. The land, the heirlooms, the money, everything was supposed to go to Fina. The law was on her side now. The lawyer was ready to take Gemma and the family to court to expose the forgery. But Fina surprised him. She said, "No court, no headlines. I want to tell them myself, and I want to do it on the wedding day." The lawyer blinked in surprise but nodded. He respected her calm strength. She didn't want revenge. She wanted truth, and she wanted them to hear it straight from her, face to face. Fina used the next few days to prepare, not just the legal papers, but her heart. She was no longer the crying girl they had pushed aside. She was now confident and ready. She stitched herself a beautiful dress, elegant, powerful, the color of quiet fire. Every thread carried her pain and her healing. She knew she would walk into that wedding, not as a forgotten sister, but as a woman in full control of her story. The power wasn't just in the papers or the law, it was in her voice, in her choice to speak with strength, not anger, in her silence all these years, and now, finally, in her return. On the day of the wedding, she wasn't nervous. She stood tall, her bag holding the truth, her heart holding peace. This wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. It was about dignity, about letting them see the woman they had tried to erase, walk in, unshaken, and speak her truth. And when she did, nothing in their world would ever be the same again. The wedding hall was filled with bright lights, loud music, and laughter. Everything sparkled, gold decorations, glittering outfits, and proud smiles. Guests were eating, dancing, and talking. Gemma stood tall, shaking hands and laughing. Lami smiled, though her eyes looked tired. Fina walked in quietly. No one expected her. She wasn't wearing something simple like the invitation said. Number She came in a gown she made with her own hand. Every stitch told her story. It was beautiful, strong, and graceful, just like her. As she stepped in, people turned to look. Conversations stopped. Her parents, sitting proudly in the front row, gasped when they saw her. Gemma's proud smile slowly faded. Lami, standing beside him, froze. Her eyes widened in shock. Fina didn't speak. She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She just stood tall, her eyes calm, her back straight. She looked around the hall, but not with hate, only strength. Some guests whispered, trying to remember who she was. Some just stared at her beauty and quiet power. Then came the big moment, something planned by the family. The MC announced it loudly. Now, the family of the groom will present a special gift to the couple, an inheritance passed down from the grandmother's estate. Applause filled the room. A golden box was brought to the stage, full of papers and land documents. Fina finally walked forward. Slowly but surely, she stepped onto the stage. She held her small bag tightly, the truth inside it. Her family didn't stop her. They were too shocked. No one expected her to stand there in front of everyone, but she did. Still, she didn't say anything. Not yet. She stood there, looking at the box meant for Gemma and Lami. She waited. Her silence spoke louder than any words. And in that silence, everyone felt something shift. The celebration paused. The lights didn't seem as bright, because somehow, they all knew. The real story was about to begin. The golden box was carried to the center of the stage like it was some kind of treasure. Everyone clapped and smiled, thinking it was a special gift from the family to the new couple. Inside the box were shiny gold bracelets, important land documents, and the heirloom necklace that had belonged to Fina's grandmother, something Fina was promised long ago. Just as the MC was about to hand it over to Gimma and Lami, Fina stepped forward. The room got quiet. Her footsteps were soft, but her presence was strong. She didn't look angry or sad. She looked sure of herself. Fina walked to the box, placed her hand gently on it, and looked straight at Gimma and her parents. Her voice was calm, not loud, but it filled the whole room. "This doesn't belong to you," she said. "It never did." Gasps spread across the hall. People looked around, confused. What was she talking about? Fina opened her small bag and took out old letters and legal papers. She laid them carefully on the table next to the chest. Everyone leaned forward to see what was written. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes didn't blink. Then, from the side of the hall, a man stepped out. It was the lawyer, an old family friend her grandmother once trusted. No one had noticed him before. He walked slowly to the stage and stood next to Fina. He looked at the documents, then turned to the crowd. "These papers are real," the lawyer said clearly. "They prove that the original will was changed without permission. All these things in the box, the land, the jewelry, the heirlooms, they legally belong to Miss Fina." The room went completely silent. Gimma's face turned pale. Lami looked down, her eyes full of shame. Fina didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stood there, calm and peaceful, like someone who had finally gotten her voice back. And in that moment, the whole world seemed to understand. She had not come to beg. She had come to reclaim what was already hers. When Fina's words filled the room, her father's face twisted with anger. He tried to shout down the truth, but his voice shook and cracked. He looked desperate, like a man trying to hold on to something slipping away. Her mother, unable to handle the shock, suddenly fainted and had to be carried away by worried guests. The bright smiles and cheers that had filled the room just moments before disappeared. Everyone was quiet, shocked by what they had just heard. Gimma stood frozen, his confident smile gone. He looked like a man who couldn't believe what was happening, like a king losing his throne. He stared at the papers on the table, unable to say a word. The lie that had been built for years was falling apart right in front of him. No one was clapping anymore. The joyful celebration turned into a heavy silence, broken only by the gasps and whispers of the stunned guests. In the middle of it all was Lami, the bride. Her face was pale, and her eyes were full of shame and confusion. She reached for the beautiful heirloom necklace, the same necklace everyone had admired earlier. With trembling hands, she took it off and held it out to Fina. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I should have asked you why you disappeared all those years. I'm sorry." It was a moment of truth and regret. Lami, who had once been Fina's closest friend, now showed that she understood something important. She had been wrong not to reach out, not to see the pain behind Fina's silence. The necklace in her hands was more than just jewelry. It was a symbol of trust and love that had been broken and now was being returned. The guests watched, some with tears in their eyes, as Fina accepted the necklace. The lies that had kept her in the shadows for so long were finally collapsing. The truth was shining through, brighter than any gold or jewels. And in that room, with everyone watching, Fina's silence ended and her strength began to grow. Fina didn't want to hurt anyone or get revenge. She only wanted what was rightfully hers, restoration. After the shocking truth was revealed at the wedding, she calmly picked up her inheritance and walked out of the hall with her head held high. She wasn't angry or bitter. Instead, she felt strong and free. People stared as she left, but she didn't care. This was her moment to start fresh, on her own terms. Instead of keeping everything for herself, Fina chose to share part of her inheritance. She donated some of the land to create a scholarship for orphaned girls, girls like she once was, left forgotten and in need of help. She wanted to give them hope and a chance to build a better future. This act of kindness showed that she was not just taking back what was hers, but also giving back to the community that needed it most. With the rest of her inheritance, Fina did something even more powerful. She started her own fashion brand, using her grandmother's name as a symbol of pride and honor. She poured her heart and soul into every dress she made, turning her pain into creativity. Her brand quickly grew popular because it wasn't just about clothes. It was about strength, beauty, and standing up for what's right. People admired her for turning her struggles into success. Meanwhile, Gimma's life took a very different path. After the truth came out, Lami left him, her eyes finally opened to his coldness and cruelty. Society began to avoid him. The family that had once supported him turned their backs. He was left with nothing, The very thing he tried to deny Fina all along. His greed and lies only brought him loss and loneliness. Fina's story spread like wildfire. She wasn't just a girl who lost her inheritance. She was a woman who fought back with grace and kindness. She showed everyone that true power comes not from taking revenge, but from restoring what is just and building a future that honors who you really are.